Why is this man smiling? Well, I just previewed today's breaking debate coverage for Dan Quayle, and boy, is he happy to share today's news, and especially our CNN bombshell video with you as it cuts to the core of the character debate amidst this presidential debate, because tonight the eyes of the world, well, they'll turn to New York City as the two vice presidential candidates, Army Corporal Press Officer and Ohio Senator JD Vance, and Army Command Sergeant Major and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, stand face to face to enter the history books during the most consequential election in American history, and that's not hyperbole. And as you're about to see, well, it's got everybody talking all across social and mainstream media. It seems that likability is the trending issue for JD Vance, and the exchange over on CNN between Van Jones and Lee Zeldin, that draws the contrast between the two candidates with the most passion and distinction. You got to see it. But before we run that, Dan Quayle asked me to add a little context to our deliberation about tonight's debate with CNN's Harry Enton, who clearly explains J.D. Vance's problem in both Yiddish and in Spanish.
Let's take a look, and I think you can see here, oy vey when it comes to J.D. Vance. Oy vey, this is the net favorable ratings. Look at that, minus 11 points for J.D. Vance. No bueno. Let's jump to the other side of the screen. Tim Walz, look at that. A +4 net favorability rating, the highest of any of these four folks on the screen right now. The Democrats better liked than the Republicans.
In terms of historical perspective, where does that favorability rating stand?
Again, not good. This is something I've been harping on throughout this entire cycle. So this is VP nominees with a net negative favorable rating going into their first vice presidential debate. J.D. Vance here at minus 11 points, the worst all time going into their first VP debate. The only other person in negative net favorability territory is Dan Quayle back in 1988 with a minus 3-point net favorability rating.
But wait, there's more. Over on CNBC, Minnesota representative and bingo caller Tom Emmer tries to spin it to win it by making the argument that the more you know about Tim Walz, the less you'll like him.
I'm so sorry. What's your name?
My name's Tim.
Do you mind if I join you on your walk?
I'd love to have you.
Really? Well, let's see Tom Emmer try to polish this turgid campaign.
I mean, if you're going to talk about favorability and likability, I mean, J.D. Vance is coming in with some of the worst polling numbers in terms of whether people like him or not. If he is very prosecutorial, very lawyerly, as you're suggesting in this debate tonight, does that win for him in terms of likability and whether people will vote for him?
I think the polling that you're talking about is because people have not been introduced to Tim Walz. He's just recently been installed.
Oh, these are J.D. Vance's numbers.
Well, but hear me out. Yeah. Nobody had Tim Walz on their bingo card, and he shows up. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, look at this guy. He's got all kinds of energy, whatever. Nobody's talking about issues. Again, as people get to know Tim Walz, they do not like him.
How much did
J.D. Vance, I think tonight will be his chance to introduce himself.
So here's the best clip we could find to set up tonight's debate. This gentle exchange on CNN between Van Jones and Lee Zeldin gets very serious when Van draws the line between despicable and respectable, as you're about to see. That leaves the panel speechless. So let's watch Van Jones get to the heart of the difference between the two candidates by exposing the very nature of their souls.
But I think Walt has got to be very careful. He is not a good debater. He's a good man, but he's not a good debater. He says he's not a good debater. And I think J.D. Vance is mad. I think he has been humiliated every day since he was named vice president. I think he's looking for redemption. Whenever you're going up against somebody who is looking for redemption, who's pissed, who's got a personal stake in the outcome, you're dealing with a very dangerous opponent. And I think that Walt has got to be careful tomorrow night.
I think that I'm a supporter, obviously, of Senator Vance. And one of the reasons why, and you and I spoke about this at the convention, that I love JD's story. A lot of people out there in America don't know it. So being able to find opportunities to talk about your service in the military.
Who doesn't know his story? He's got the most famous story in American politics. He's mostly made up, but he's got a famous story.
And but there are a lot of people out there actually tuning in, and somehow they're undecided in this election. And you have to talking to them about the issues for Governor Walz. I think that there is an accounting that I would expect JD Vance to be getting into as far as the comments about serving inside of war, serving in war. He was distributing tampons in boys' bathrooms, elementary school. Some people say, "Oh, stay away from the cultural issues." Well, a lot of people don't know about that. They're delaying to bring in the National Guard when Minneapolis was being burnt down, or supporting taxpayer-funded health care to people who aren't legally in the country. There's a lot to get flushed out when you're running against someone who is the furthest left nominee for vice president ever.
And who's beloved, popular, and you are hated and despised even in your own party. So that's.
Well, and I should note also just quickly, I believe that was fact-checked, and they actually weren't doing that in boys' restrooms in schools.
It's a bill, though, that Governor Walz
But it didn't actually happen. People looked into that. That does matter.
He did sign it.
But listen, JD Vance
signed.
has a historic unfavorability rating right now going into this debate. He's also one of the least qualified VP candidates in recent memory, in that he's a junior senator and he's running with the oldest nominee for President, Donald Trump. So he needs to show up and convince the public, I would be ready, God forbid, on day one to be president of the United States. But what I would say is this: a lot of folks were introduced to JD Vance as the guy who's criticizing cat ladies and insulting women. That's not all there is to JD Vance. He is a Yale Law grad. He's a Marine Corps veteran. He's somebody with a very fascinating life story. Things about it have been questioned. If that side of him shows up, I think you could have a really formidable night. Yeah. I would not underestimate him tomorrow. I actually am bullish that he might be the person who outperforms expectations. But Tim Walz, this is a guy who spent 12 years in the House. He's on his 6th year as governor. He should have the credentials, but I think he's somebody who's a lot more meant for retail politics than in front of a podium kind of hashing out the policies.
Well, and of course, they've been practicing for this. Pete Buttigieg has been playing JD Vance in the debate prep. You've seen Tom Emmer, the House whip on the Republican side, playing Governor Walz and JD Vance's debate prep, and we've seen this playing out. But we've also seen Donald Trump on the campaign trail, and obviously some of this is going to come up tomorrow night. Donald Trump was talking about immigration over the weekend. Even he acknowledged that it was a darker speech than what he's given previously. This is what he said last night.
Crooked Joe Biden became mentally impaired, sad. But lying Kamala Harris, honestly, I believe she was born that way. And if you think about it, only a mentally disabled person could have allowed this to happen to our country. That's over 647,572 migrant criminals who Kamala set loose to rape, pillage, thieve, plunder, and kill the people of the United States of America. They'll walk into your kitchen, they'll cut your throat. I'm just saying, this is a dark speech.
I mean, are we going to see that on the debate stage tomorrow night when they're talking about immigration?
Probably. I mean, just to set the facts straight, crime is going down.
Which the FBI just updated the numbers today.
And the immigrant population is committing crime at a lower rate than the rest of us. But that's the kind of despicable stuff that you're going to see from JD Vance. JD Vance has no integrity, no dignity, no morals. He changed his whole personality to fit in with Donald Trump. He's lying about Haitians and has destroyed the Haitian community in his own state for power. He has done nothing except write a phony book, suck up to people with big money on Wall Street, and then be a senator for a year and a half. He is a despicable person, and you're going to see the worst of American politics tomorrow night from this guy. He's a racist and he's horrible.
Man. Listen, I think he is a man of integrity, and he is someone who doesn't lie about his
cats and dogs.
Military.
Cats and dogs.
Well, Tim Walz is out there saying he served in
cats
combat.
And dogs.
He never served in combat.
Black people eat cats and dogs. Black immigrants eat cats and dogs.
And then when he was asked about it,
that's integrity.
I mean, listen, we heard
integrity.
Scott Jennings on the line here on air talking about it last night. About not knowing what words to use and blaming grammar or whatever. Like you have to be honest
I'd rather
and
have bad grammar than a bad soul. He has destroyed Haitian children's ability to go to school because he's a racist.
I'll tell you what JD Vance is pissed off about is the fact that the border czar is allowing the border wall construction
attack Kamala. Don't attack Haitians. Attack Kamala. Don't attack Haitians.
Ramping up.
Don't attack Haitian children.
Getting rid of 1042.
You're a better man than to defend.
So let's stop right there and get to a really important point. Guilt by association. Lee probably is a better man than the one who could defend hurting innocent Haitian kids, but that's what Trump does to many people. And it's going to take a long time to understand why. And by extension, JD Vance has lowered the bar much further. After all, this is the guy Project 2025 was banking on to be their long-term figurehead of their evil agenda. Trump, as we know, is just a doddering old man, long past his usefulness to anyone. And because of that, as much as I never cared for you at all, I can tell you, Senator, I've covered JD Vance, I've slammed JD Vance. Halting the evil JD Vance embodies as the reason I get up in the morning. And you, Senator, you are no JD Vance.